Jesse, cue it up. Everybody in their places. It's time to go.
Are we rolling? Yeah, we're rolling. Okay, let's get it done, everybody. Let's go. Hey, Reagan, how's my hair? Is it okay?
Poxy, they can't see you.
All right, come on, let's go. Let's do this, people. Poxy, start on page 4. Get the
Here we
lines
are.
right this time.
Right, I
5,
got it this time, I swear.
4, 3.
Come on. It's time for the Ghost of Hollywood.
Welcome to the 44th episode of The Ghost of Hollywood. I'm Poxy Leonard here with Miss Ragan, and joining us tonight is our dear friend and phenomenal filmmaker, Jennifer Lynch.
Following the success of her book, The Secret Diary of Laura Palmer, Lynch would make her directorial debut at the age of 19 after her film, Boxing Helena, would undergo various cast changes, causing financial strains and delays before finally coming together to premiere at the Sundance Film Festival in 1993.
And it wouldn't be until 15 years later that Lynch would return to filmmaking, directing the feature Surveillance in 2008 and Chained in 2012. Prior to these, Jennifer worked on the film Hiss for a year in India before she would ultimately remove herself from the project, disowning its final cut as a result. However, a documentary about her time working on Hiss, titled Despite the Gods, was released a short while later, shedding light on the endless difficulties Jen would face while working on Hiss, especially while she was raising her daughter Sydney simultaneously, who had spent a year in India with Jen while she was filming.
With her daughter raised, Jen returned to directing, this time for television, stating the opportunity arose after she displayed the ability to turn a successful production quickly, having done so with Chained in recent years. Since then, she's gone on to direct several episodes of programs such as American Horror Story, shout out to Jamie Brewer, The Walking Dead, Gossip Girl, Matlock, and Watson, to name a few of many.
Few of many. But you know, Reagan, I have many of few.
What?
I don't know. Anyway, Simon and Lennox are also back with a brand new episode of the Cinematic Dumpster Fire, and this time they're revisiting the set of the 1980 shock TV show, That's Incredible. More on that later. I'm Poxy Leonard here with Miss Reagan, and it's time for a quick break.
When we return, Jen Lynch will be with us, so stay tuned because you're listening to The Ghost of Hollywood.
Yo, what's up, everybody? The Ghost of Hollywood is sponsored by KBOO Community Radio, which is 90.7 FM in Portland, Oregon. And don't forget that you can help support KBOO by visiting their website at kboo.fm, donating an amount of your choice, and letting us know why you support KBOO. You can also text KBOO to 44321. Tell them the Ghost of Hollywood sent you.
Interested in television or movies?
Then check out The Ghost of Hollywood for the best in cinema-related podcast at theghostofhollywood.com or wherever you get your podcast.
Welcome back to The Ghost of Hollywood. I'm Poxy Leonard here with Miss Reagan, and joining us tonight is writer, director, and filmmaker Jennifer Lynch. Making her directorial debut in her late teens and early 20s, following the completion of her screenplay Boxing Helena, Lynch would become one of the youngest women in cinema history to ever direct a studio film. Lynch would also go on to write the now infamous Diary of Laura Palmer at the age of 22, based on the character from her father David's hit series Twin Peaks, and the book debuted at number 4 on the New York Times bestseller list in 1990. Following a 15-year hiatus, Jennifer would make a return to directing with the film Surveillance, starring Bill Pullman. She would also go on to direct another film entitled Chained, and several television series such as The Walking Dead, Daredevil, and 911, just to name a few. That said, I'd like to welcome Jennifer to the show. How are you this evening?
I am very well, thank you. You make me sound like I've done quite a bit of stuff.
You've done so many
You
things.
have done quite a bit of
That's
stuff.
quite nice.
Yeah, you've done a lot. You've been busy. I mean, all the way since the beginning, so.
Yeah, there's that 15-year gap where I was going to have a baby and had that baby and realized I was going to have that baby alone, and that I invited her here and I should make her feel welcome and not threaten her with my absence because I was on set or busy doing something else. So I embraced motherhood and made sure that she had, of solid parenting.
Man, you and Sydney are tight to this day, aren't you? I mean,
She lives with me. She's on her way home right now. It's her husband's birthday today, and they went swimming at a friend's house. So we're very tight. We're very tight.
We're gonna have to let you go so you can go party then.
Hey,
Gotta get the
rock and
party
roll,
on.
man.
Yeah.
I already gave him his present. It's on his pillowcase. So
Oh, that's sweet. We'll tell him happy birthday from us when he returns for sure. He'll be like, "Who the hell are those people?" But, anyway.
exactly. No, but it was quite a gift to because there are years in adolescence where I think it's impossible to get along with your parents, or you'd never leave. You'd never go out on your own. And so things have to sort of fall apart. And I was really certain that Sid and I were so thick as thieves, we would never argue about anything. And sure enough, we had a breakup. And there was a time where we didn't talk to each other. And I can tell you that was one of the most hollow times of my life. And I was working in New York for 2.5 years, and my house was empty, and she was house sitting and still paying for her apartment.
Yeah.
And my husband at the time said, "What are they doing? They should just move in. We're not there for 2.5 years." And so they did. And my marriage ended up ending. And he stayed in New York, and I flew back. And I had the great gift of the comfort of my daughter and son-in-law when I came home alone.
Oh man, Ragan, you're gonna do this to me, aren't you?
I'm gonna start this one. No. But I was like, this is my
Go Ragan, go Ragan.
I'll be nice, I promise.
But so now I've read, so in a 2012 interview with Vice, you mentioned that producer, Philip Callan, approached you with the premise of the film Boxing Helena. Now, at first you said it sounded kind of terrible, and you asked to bring in associations from your own life. Specifically your experience with clubfoot and the influence of your grandmother's replica of the Venus de Milo. Now, what ultimately convinced you to take the job and write the script?
He offered me $3,000, which was more money than I'd ever heard of in my entire life.
Oh.
I was reading poetry. Once a week, there was a nightclub called Helena's where they would have an open mic poetry reading. And Philippe Calland often went, and he heard me read and approached me after I had read a few poems and told me he was looking for a writer. And we met for coffee a day or so later. And you're absolutely right. I heard that he wanted to make a story about a man so in love with a woman that he cut off her arms and legs and kept her in a box to have sex with her. And I thought that sounded terrible. I thought, where's the value in that? Yeah. That's what a horrible thing to do. And yet I could relate to the Venus de Milo and her missing appendages. And I could relate to loving something so much that in part of your consciousness, things that take them away from you disappear, like in a dream. When you say to somebody, "It's so weird. We were there together, and then Johnny showed up, and you know how I feel about Johnny, and then suddenly Johnny was gone, and it was a beautiful dream." And so I was willing to play with that and investigate that and make a fairy tale about obsessive love, but I didn't want to make Saw. I didn't want it to be about, pardon my language, as he put it, fucking a woman in a box.
Yeah.
That just seemed really rotten to me. And I think it's hard enough to be a girl, let alone have to deal with stories being told like that. But I thought there was a way for me to give her the power, be a very sharp-witted and, for lack of a better term, big Snow White, and him a flaccid Prince Charming. And no matter what he did to her, she was still in control. Until she wasn't, and then he woke up. And again, $3,000 was more money than I'd ever heard of in my life. And I was unemployed and living alone, and I was a double major in school, painting and writing, and this allowed me to both sort of paint with words and tell a story. And I was in.
Yeah, you had initially said that you didn't have interest in working in film, obviously, given your path
Yeah,
in college.
I had no that it was sort of like that. Well, that's what Dad does.
Yeah.
Um, what's funny is that both my mother and father are painters and writers, and that's what I was. But there was something about, um, you know, Dad would talk to me about ideas he had, and I would see him translate ideas he had into cinema, and I was so in awe of how specific and yet universal he could be, that it was something that was pointed and about this character, and yet somehow everyone could relate to it or be horrified by it. And I just thought, there's in no world do I want to compete with that. And the competition element is something created by society and those outside of us. That's not anything Dad and I ever experienced. I mean, he very kindly said to me a few years ago, I knew someday they'd say to me, aren't you Jennifer Lynch's father?
Yeah, see, he admitted that you got him finally.
Yeah. But
No.
but for years, I mean, it was, you're David Lynch's daughter, and you have to be so much more than anybody else when you walk in a room when you're David Lynch's daughter. The expectation is incredibly high, and it should be. He sets a bar that is unlike any other, and I think you can't help but hurt your neck looking up at it.
Well,
The door would open very easily for me, yes. Easier than some other person my age trying to make a film. But I had to step into that office and be 10,000 times what anybody else will be required to be.
do you feel now, revisiting it, that the people around you I'm sure do you think that the responsibility was just overwhelming, and to a degree where you kind of look at them at their age and you're like, why did they put this unrealistic level of pressure on me at this time, and then why were they so critical as a result?
Well, what's weird is when you're 19, it's the oldest you've ever been.
Yeah.
So you think I'm old.
Yeah.
I know what I'm talking about. I have these feelings. I'm sure about this. Nobody can tell me how to live my life. And when somebody said to me, you have to make this movie because if a man makes it, it will turn into something awful. I felt a real compassion for the story, and I thought, if this isn't some sort of strange fairy tale, it's going to become a horror erotica, and that's not what this movie is. That's not what I want to make. And there's, in it, Helena's monologue about making love to a woman, and what anybody paying attention to will see in that woman when she's touched. And I wanted to guardian that desperately. And I was willing to go up against what I knew would be terrifying comparison. But it was far more terrifying than I ever thought it could be. The expectation, because I was Dad's daughter, was that it was going to be horrifying and dark and have a certain mood.
Yeah.
And be a certain thing. And I was very specifically framing every shot as if it were a page in a storybook, a fairy tale book. I remember reading Cinderella over and over again as a child, and the way Disney drew each frame was very specific and very measured. And if you go over the film I make these very distinct choices that might not be the most potent way to show it, but it is the most potent way to show that someone is telling you a story.
What do you feel is the most significant example of that in the film? Is there one?
There is one. I would say the one I feel is most potent to me is Helena in the box on the dining room table, surrounded by flowers, and Nick being forced out of the room by her laughter at him, and the symmetry of the frame, and then his sitting down, unseen to her, but totally seen by us, as he sort of shrinks into his less than world.
Revisiting it now, all these years later, how having younger generations see it and being able to take a pure understanding of it for what it is outside of the media frenzy and everything that was dramatizing around you at the time.
Trial and all that.
Yeah.
Oish.
How do you feel about it now, revisiting it?
Revisiting for me is hard, but it has been a really joyful experience to find that in the last 7 to 10 years, people will say, it wasn't cool to like that movie when it came out, but I really did.
I feel like a lot of people, especially fans of your dad's work, especially would have enjoyed it at that time, because you shared a relationship with the cast and you were familiar with the people that you were directing, and that symbiosis played out on screen. So it seems that people there would have been some understanding for it somewhere, but I guess it wasn't there at the time as much.
It wasn't there, and people were so ready to put us up against each other.
Yeah,
Who's better, and who plays with darkness more succinctly. And because the original casting was Madonna and Ed Harris,
yeah,
and we had rehearsals and we built sets and we were ready to go. And Madonna called me one night, weeping. And she was perfect for Helena. She was sexually confident and took no bullshit. And, you really had to crack her open to get to her emotions. But she called me one night crying and said that Andrew Lloyd Webber told her he would not give her a Vita if she did Boxing Helena.
Mm.
Oh.
And she had promised her deceased mother that she would do a Vita in honor of her. And Madonna, a testament to what kind of woman she is, paid the production back every single penny that we spent. So no, we weren't making the movie, but we'd lost no money. Hundreds of thousands of dollars we got returned.
Yeah.
And then we moved on to Kim Basinger and Ed Harris. And we had rehearsals and we fit Kim for prosthetics. And then Kim got a new agent who wanted her to do things like Cool World, who, when I met with him, refused to shake my hand and instead patted me on the head and said, "She's not doing your movie, little camper."
Mm.
Oh.
And the whole trial happened. The producer, we lost so much money when Kim said she wasn't going to do it. And my deal was in court, and I was on the witness stand for quite some time, was I don't want to force anybody to do anything. And if Kim doesn't want to do it, then that's fine. But in no uncertain terms am I going to let her pretend she wasn't intending to do it. She's fitted for wardrobe and prosthetics, and we have built sets, and we were ready to go. So changing your mind is one thing, but pretending you never intended to is another. And that's what I can't abide by. People change their minds for all different kinds of reasons, and it's not always a bad thing or a good thing. It's just, there's a shift. And I wouldn't have wanted to work with her if she wasn't deeply invested in playing Helena. But poor Ed Harris had waited, 3 years to do another film because he was about to do Boxing Helena over and over again.
Was this before or after he'd done when was The Abyss done? Because I know The Abyss
The
was...
Abyss was done just after.
Okay, so he ended up going through hell afterward. So,
Yeah.
Because I know his experience with The Abyss was pretty crazy from what I've read.
Oh, yeah.
Really crazy.
Yeah.
Really crazy.
So,
And I forget the movie Places in the Heart with Sally Field.
okay, I haven't seen it, but I know what you're talking about.
Highly recommend. That was the Ed Harris I hired to play Nick in Boxing Helena. And I think while we were trying to make the movie, The Abyss was released, but he had really struggled through that. That was not a joyful experience for him. Even though I love that movie and could watch it again and again.
Yeah, it's a great film.
But he had to say, I can't keep doing this. You know what I mean? Like, my life is going by. And, what could I do except understand?
Yeah.
Was there a sadness? Absolutely. Was there an amazing magic in both the rehearsals with Madonna and Ed Harris and Kim Basinger and Ed Harris? Yes. He was a different kind of Nick. He was a different kind of frightened Prince Charming. And Madonna and Kim Basinger were a different kind of cold appearance and sexuality based Helena. But what ultimately I got with Julian Sands and Sherilyn Fenn was, I think, what it needed, which was people who weren't necessarily already known for so many other things.
Yeah.
And could appear as these characters and bring them to life. And they were both deeply committed to the story and were very brave with me. It was the first time I picked up a camera. So they had a great deal of faith in me. And I will forever be grateful.
What camera do you shoot with? You remember?
I do not. I know it was Panavision.
Was it Panavision?
Mhm.
That was.
Yeah.
So did you have, like, when at that point when it came down to the technical components of it, did you have some formal or informal experience from being around David's sets when you were younger, or?
I had only learned by watching.
Okay.
And I had been in every phase of production, from watching my father write to watching him in principal photography and prep, and watching him in post and in the mix, and to the final, let's burn that print. That's the movie.
Yeah.
And I saw him joyfully play. And as I was growing up, Eraserhead is sort of a story inspired by my conception and birth. And it took 5 years to make. He often ran out of money and could not continue to shoot. But Jack Nance agreed to keep his hair the same way.
Yeah, I've always read that legend that Jack's hair.
Yeah. And there is exactly to the day 1 year between Jack entering the elevator on the bottom floor of the apartment and then exiting on the top floor of the apartment. There was a solid year between those two shots because there was just no money. But Dad was always making something. He was always shooting something. Whether it was a short with Catherine Coulson, who was also camera on Eraserhead, and married to Jack Nance and the Log Lady, and but he did a great short called The Amputee with Catherine, where I remember just being giddy at the sight of him cutting holes into a chair in our living room so that Catherine could hide her legs in the chair and he could make it look like she didn't have legs. And I had learned that you can have an idea and work with people to manifest that idea.
So, switching gears and kind of on topic with working with other people, you co-wrote Surveillance with Kent Harper, correct?
I did. Kent approached me with a script called Tres Brujas, which translates to Three Witches. And we were good friends. And I said that I had enjoyed the script, but it didn't interest me. And he said, "Well, what would you do?" And it was sort of a soft dare. And Surveillance was created.
Once you go to work on Surveillance, I mean, I know there's said the 15-year hiatus, but you had to, and then you had the movie Hiss, which you had kind of worked on, and you did the Despite the Gods documentary, which was really cool.
Right, which is amazing. I mean, that documentary happened accidentally because the woman who was hired to just do behind the scenes press kit said to me, "I think there's something more going on here than just a behind the scenes thing. I think a woman in India trying to make a film with people who aren't really letting her make her film is a really fascinating subject. And I would like to keep filming you, and I will help you take care of your child and guardian her." And I was mic'd 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And there are many things I wish ended up in the documentary that ultimately couldn't. And I wish I'd gotten a chance to make that film.
Yeah.
I had a wonderful time writing it. I loved being in India, but I was I was not working with the best people, and I was, I was challenged in ways that I could not step up to meet. Let's put it that way. For example, we had, everything that could go wrong went wrong. There were labor strikes, there were cyclones, there were people thinking the production was cursed. We had to change, it would take a 24-hour bus ride and change entire cities that we were shooting in and find a location in the dark for the next day's work. And to that end, we would have a new translator every day who would translate my English script into Hindi. And the scene where Irfan Khan comes in after his wife has miscarried, and it's holy day, and he splashes water on his face in the mirror in the bathroom of the police station. The English version is he looks at himself and says, "You just keep trying." Suggesting that someday there will be a baby and he will just keep trying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He called me over and he says, "I don't think the translation is appropriate." And I said, "Oh, it's a new translator." He says, "Well, let me just tell you, I know it's supposed to be, we'll just keep trying."
Yeah.
But what it translates to in so many words is, "Just keep fucking her till something sticks."
No shit.
Whoa.
Yeah, all right.
And that, as you can imagine, changed the tone of things. And so I found myself making a movie I couldn't always trust was being translated properly. And I was in a foreign country with my 12-year-old daughter. And it is very hard to be a woman in India.
Yeah.
Especially a woman of any measure. Welcome home. There's my daughter and son-in-law.
I thought there was an ear on the floor.
But I love that country and I love what I got to do. And I'm so glad that the documentary was made, as painful as it is for me to watch. And as painful as it is for me to watch, because I know what's missing.
Yeah.
And so it will seem I'm quite upset about something when in fact you have missed several large events with a devastating outcome. And that is why I'm upset the way I am. But I know Penny Wozniak, the director, did the very best she could to not make me look like I was just a crazy woman losing her mind.
I don't think you came off like that at all. I mean, to be honest, I think, and now my one experience in working in indie film, and the tension of it, especially when you have your focus is constantly being pulled 1,000 directions and you're trying to manage things, and communication can be key. You seem very human. You seem very reasonable being put up against a lot of difficult challenges. I mean, and it's very clear, like with production delays and it might be to the outside observer, maybe not as concise, but I think to anyone that's been involved in film, and a lot of the people that probably watched that documentary, I think that have worked in film, it probably makes them feel equally as human, because you're really stomaching something that's very difficult.
And there are many examples of the literal experience of being a female in a position of power in India, and because they have such a strict caste system. And I said, I was telling crew members and the art department that the snake was to be kept in a glass container with wood chips.
Yeah.
And they all nodded and said, "Achatike." Yes. And I said, and wood chips, I want to make sure you guys understand what I'm saying. And if you don't understand, I'll find a way to explain it better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm perfectly willing to admit that I might not be communicating properly. But on the day there were no wood chips. And somebody finally said to them, they admitted they did not want to admit to me they didn't know what wood chips were.
Oh.
And very quickly, I went outside to have a cigarette off the stage and saw them with chisels, literally making wood chips out of boards of wood, as if we had the time to do that. And they were in earnest trying to make me what I had asked for, but they had been unable in the moment weeks earlier to say, "I don't know what you mean." And so we ended up using newspaper.
But that's kind of but that's a genuine frustration, because it's where the lack of communication between you all and then the proactivity kind of breaks
Exactly.
down.
They just felt like it would emasculate them to say to a woman, "I don't know what you mean."
Yeah.
And for me, that's heartbreaking. It's like, what a fucking miserable way to live. Like the beauty of communication is and the beauty of "I don't know" or "I don't understand" is that you're going to eventually, someone will explain it. You will learn something. You will be bettered and fulfilled, by saying, "I don't know." I don't know is a very powerful thing to say. And I don't know when, society decided that was a weak thing. To me, it's very brave.
It usually saves your ass.
To admit,
in the
I don't
long
know.
run. I mean, normally if you can admit you don't know, especially on a film set, you don't want to be pretentious. It can backfire on you pretty immensely and everybody around you, because it kind of bunches up the workflow really fast. And
exactly. And ultimately, we're all there to tell the same story, and you're only hobbling other people and other artists and other skilled workers if you're bullshitting. You know what I mean?
Well,
they didn't really understand script supervision, and I said, how can that be? How can there not be a script supervisor? And they said, well, someone does a similar job, but just watch one of our most popular soap operas, and you'll see that continuity is not a big issue. And sure enough, my daughter and I watched a portion of a soap opera in the days following, where a beautiful Indian woman carrying her child walks through her living room and into a swinging door that leads to her kitchen. And when she enters the kitchen, there's no baby in her arms.
Oh, all right. Continuity gone big time, that one.
And I was like, wow. So when I would step away from the camera and go over to find the snake, I would say, "Where's the snake?" And they would say, "It's over here, madam." And I would say, "But yes, it was here." And they'd say, "But yes, now it is here." And there's a beautiful freedom in that. There's a suggestion that everything is dreamlike and pliable and malleable, and it's okay for things to be a little bit different. But for me, it was like, no, I need the snake to be where it was, because it matters to the character who's entering the frame.
Yeah, I mean, and there was a lot of special effects that you had to deal with too for this film, and that was kind of like at the time during like a pretty big digital transition too.
A really big digital transition, and I was able to work with Robert Kurtzman and the practical effects, but I was never able to be a part of the CGI. That was never something I got to be a part of in post. So none of that is of my creation, and I've just had people who care about me say, don't ever see what they did to what you intended to do. And for me, it was another sort of fairy tale about someone looking for immortality and ultimately realizing that immortality is being remembered by those who follow you. And that's living forever. But this selfish American man with brain cancer thinks he can live forever if he gets the noggin. And as I say in the documentary, I've got a piece of shit over there with a Pamela Anderson shirt on it. And I'm making a movie about a snake who turns into a woman who turns into a snake. And that should have been joyful, and there were many moments where it was, but it was also, I think, just because it was a clashing of people who couldn't necessarily be honest with each other about what they understood and didn't understand. There were great moments of opportunity lost.
All right, that makes sense. Now I'm Poxy Leonard here with Miss Ragan, and we are speaking with writer and director Jennifer Lynch. Stay tuned, we'll be back to continue this conversation shortly, but it's time that we turn things over to my buddy Simon and Lennox really quickly for a brief segment of the Cinematic Dumpster Fire. So, like I said, you are listening to The Ghost of Hollywood. We'll be back with you right after these messages.
Interested in television or movies?
Then check out The Ghost of Hollywood for the best in cinema-related podcast at theghostofhollywood.com or wherever you get your podcast.
When it comes to making movies, anything can go wrong. And tonight we're here to discuss that on the Cinematic Dumpster Fire.
What's up, everybody? This is Simon speaking. I'm joined by our engineer Lennox, and it's time for another short segment of the Cinematic Dumpster Fire. First, I hope you're enjoying Poxy and Ragan's conversation with Jennifer Lynch. So no worries, they'll be back with us in just a bit. But while they break, I've dug up a nice little piece of television history that resulted in quite a few chaotic episodes back during the 1980s. So if you were a kid back then, you may remember the short-lived show That's Incredible. Or maybe you've crossed it somewhere retroactively if you missed the initial run. But either way, if you're familiar with the program, then you know exactly what sort of chaos I have in store for you. With its initial episode airing in 1980, That's Incredible wasted no time filming and focusing each episode on people doing some, well, interesting things, some which are incredibly dangerous. For example, episode 1 jumps right into the chaos with the stunt driver, Spanky Spangler. Yes, his name was Spanky Spangler, and he drove a stunt car that had Spanky paint on the side. Anyways, in this particular episode, Spanky tries to jump his car through a triangle made out of other cars, which he does nearly decapitating himself in the process, with the host casually commenting on the near-death experience. Smash TV in its prime, you know? There are some strange episodes too, like phenomena type of stories. I watched one episode where this lady named Rosemary Brown, look her up, claimed to speak with the spirits of dead composers such as Chopin, Liszt, Beethoven, you know, the A-listers of classical music. And she would write and work out these compositions after being instructed on how they would be put together by the souls of so on. Apparently, Liszt was the first to approach her when she was like 7. There was a lot of debate from musicologists about this back in the 1970s, but I don't think anyone ever believed her like she believed in herself. Anyway, neither of these resulted in disasters, despite the fact they're both interesting. But in the early days of the broadcast, 1980, two significant disasters took place and both aired on television as a part of the program's focus for those episodes.
So, the first one I'm going to tell you about took place in the summer of 1980, when Steve Lewis attempted to jump over two moving cars on a motorcycle and clipped one, causing near-fatal injuries. And let me elaborate on the setup of this stunt now that I've read the headlines for it. So Lewis wanted two cars traveling at 100 miles per hour to pass each other in a near miss underneath his path, traveling between launch ramps as he jumped over them. To give you a comparative idea, even Evel Knievel left the objects he was jumping over sit motionless. So this was a pretty daring stunt to try and pull off. But somehow, Lewis actually did manage to clip one of the cars during the segment and tore himself up pretty badly.
And in a separate stunt-related crash, this time over at the fountain at Caesar's Palace, took place on September 15th of 1980. Although Evel made the jump famous for his crash, Gary Wells' attempt was longer than Evel's 1967 attempt at over 170 feet, and the subsequent crash on That's Incredible led him to literally colliding with a brick wall. To explain what happened, Gary missed a landing ramp by just a few degrees, coming down wheels first directly on the pavement before losing control of the bike. As he lost control, it appeared Gary tried to get off before colliding with the wall, but still connected during the collision. It all aired during the first season of That's Incredible, and despite basically dying, Gary actually made a nearly full recovery.
And then the last part of this story gets sort of confusing, because while it didn't happen on the set of That's Incredible, this disaster has often been attributed to the program because of the stunt worker's previous appearances during the early episodes. So, the stunt worker I just mentioned was named Jim Bailey, commonly referred to then as the Human Torpedo. Well, the Human Torpedo had appeared on That's Incredible twice. Once for being drunk behind the wheel at some insane speed of 150 plus miles per hour, and another time being thrown through a flaming wall or something crazy like that.
So, when he harnessed himself to the bottom of a plane for a stunt for television in Hawaii, no one even batted an eye. Now, for the stunt itself, Jim was harnessed to mount on the belly of a small plane to basically torpedo along with it from underneath during flight. But apparently, the harness or mounting bolt sheared, and despite an attempt to hold on, Jim fell a distance 500 feet from the low-flying plane to his death. But there has never been any confirmation this happened for That's Incredible. Even the show's creator and producer, Alan Landsberg, said that the stunt had nothing to do with the program, and that confusion was the result of the headlines relating Bailey's notable work to the show and his death announcement.
Despite this, the era of dangerous television would modify itself to include a variety of new disclaimers, discouraging viewers from trying to emulate what they were seeing on the program. And by 1984, production on That's Incredible came to an end.
With a forced change in tonality and a buffer on extreme content, stunt TV began to fall from the ratings during the mid to late 1980s as PR pressure began to mount against dangerous television. But in a world of short reels and clickbait videos, That's Incredible serves as one of the old stomping grounds to endorse the fundamentals of the shock culture and reality stunt TV that would come to fruition in the decades to follow.
And that'll wrap up another segment of the Cinematic Dumpster Fire. I'm Lennox here with Simon, and you're listening to The Ghost of Hollywood.
And it's time for us to turn things back over to Poxy and Ragan so they can continue their conversation with director Jennifer Lynch. Stay tuned because we'll be right back after these messages.
Yo, what's up, everybody? The Ghost of Hollywood is sponsored by KBOO Community Radio, which is 90.7 FM in Portland, Oregon. And don't forget that you can help support KBOO by visiting their website at kboo.fm, donating an amount of your choice, and letting us know why you support KBOO. You can also text KBOO to 44321. Tell them the Ghost of Hollywood sent you. That's like the parenting thing, you know, like when you always get, like, say I take my kids and me to do everything, you know, and like, I mean, you know, Reagan's sitting here, and it's one of those where when you have to like justify that or try and make space for them, or people want to just like dehumanize them.
I became like tigress. I was like, don't you dare belittle my kid. My kid knows her way around a set. And this suggestion that because she's a young girl, she shouldn't be here I became quite upset. There's many moments of my reaction to that missing. And her broken heart is my broken heart. And you know, ultimately she got to spend her 12th and 13th year in a country that taught her new languages and new traditions, and I think it created a beautiful part of her personality. But there were, you know, had they had their way, the producers, she would have been unseen the entire time.
No, that wasn't going to happen with you, though.
That was not going to happen with me. That was not going to happen.
Well, now with so Surveillance and Chained, both they come later. Now, both very different films in their own right. Now, but they do build like some tension with psychological kind of claustrophobia. But so, what attracts you to that sort of terror, like to provide that with these depictions on screen in these films, or even the atmosphere? Not as much depictions. I didn't mean to narrow it down to a visual.
Yeah, no, you're not narrowing it down. I think I liken it to the thrill for me in not necessarily working up the nerve, but coming up with a question I really want to ask someone and having them think about it and then tell me. And the moment where they're thinking and I'm waiting, and they're about to offer the answer to me is a kind of tension I think is mysterious and wondrous, and so much can happen in that moment because you don't know what they're going to say, and it's a genuine question, and I always like the idea of what if people aren't who they say they are.
Yeah. Well,
and that's in both those films. Chained was actually, I wrote it called Rabbit, and I shot it called Rabbit. And the distribution company told me that they didn't know how to sell a film called Rabbit.
What the fuck? That Rabbit was that's a dope name. That would have been awesome.
Yeah, and it's the name of the kid. I feel like that would fit.
It was going to be great, and I wanted the trailer to be the taxi cab pulling up to that desolate stop sign, and her screaming and him rolling into the intersection and then punching her and slamming the door and then driving off. And I just wanted it to go to black and have the word Rabbit come up and be like, that's the trailer for this movie.
But those movies, man, they both make you think. They
did. They didn't dig that at all. And my script was based on a script called Chained that was about a serial killer called the Dicer, who captured women and cut them into small pieces. And again, Rabbit is my version of that. The production company had bought the script, and I was given permission to transform it into something that I thought was interesting. And I thought, what if the deepest betrayal is that this is actually family, that you were actually given to this man?
Yeah, that's what makes it so smart. Like, both of the movies have incredible payoffs, and I'm not being sycophantic or kissing your ass here at all. Like, it's really like you're, especially like in at the end of Chained, it's like it's a cherry on top, because you're like, it really makes it's not random, it's humanized, and you're like, oh shit. And then in Surveillance, it's smart because you build the payoff so long in that film, and you're like, oh, like I was sitting there, I was like, this got to hit. And when it does, you're like, it does. You're like, oh, all right, cool. But that's wild. I mean, they're really smart, but they uniquely define you as a filmmaker too, though. Like at that point, it's like that's stuff your dad did not focus on and or do at all. So this is your stuff. This is what you're really focused on here. When with Surveillance and Chain, both with that payoff, how do you dial it in when it comes like in post, like when you're really working on like building the tension and putting it together? Because you've got all the footage, you have it in your mind, but when you start
all the footage, yeah, and it's that special time where, you've written it, you've planned it, you've shot it, and now you're looking at what you actually captured. The hopes and dreams for it are no longer relevant. You have what you have. And I think of it as a time where you're listening to the footage, and you return to the original idea and say, what was I trying to say with this? And what's the most impactful way visually to communicate what I was trying to communicate? And what does the betrayal of a son look like? Especially a son who's been locked away, and taught horrible things, when he so desperately wants to go home and realizes that he'd been abandoned purposefully. And so I love what does that look like? What does that sound like? is the shot of Dad when we discover this a wider shot so that he's smaller and further away and inaccessible, or is he close and right on top of us? What's the most impactful way for Rabbit to see his father admit, I gave you and your mother to my brother to kill?
Yeah,
And that's like a fun puzzle. It's like when Bob tells Rabbit that people are like puzzles, pictures on the outside and pieces on the inside.
Yeah.
I relate a lot to that.
what was the atmosphere? Like that movie it climbs in your mind, and like it climbed in my mind, I guess. Anyway,
Me too.
Reagan's kind of
Me
looking
too.
like at me like he did. I'm like, yeah, so anyway, but it's one of those where what was the atmosphere on set like dealing with such like dark tones? And you all shot that shit fast, didn't you? Shot in like 2 weeks.
15 days. And
No one slept.
I had been trying to get into television for over 3 years. And I was finally thrown a bone by a friend of mine who was making a show who heard that I'd shot my last full feature in 15 days. And he said, I'm going to give you a chance at shooting for TV. TV's fast. You got to be fast, but you got to get the material. And I couldn't get fucking arrested. Nobody would hire me. And it turns out very sadly that my manager at the time was sort of sabotaging me and telling people when they would call back that she didn't think I was up to the task.
Oh, that's a pain in the ass. I guess
That's a pain in the
I
ass.
guess he dealt with that.
And the reason we shot it so quickly, and the reason I wrote it to be primarily one location, knowing that we had very little money and that this is where if Rabbit was trapped, I thought the audience should be trapped. Bob could come and go, but Rabbit should stay.
Yeah.
And these women would be brought in, and how do we protect them? How do we know them? How do we, and everything Rabbit wears is something these women brought in, like these T-shirts he was wearing, or these shorts, or this belt. All his clothing is from these women who were killed. And just what are those little touches, and him collecting their driver's licenses.
Oh, the card game with the licenses. That fucked me up.
Let me tell you something. There's a thing they made me cut.
All right.
I will never forgive them for. Number one, they made me make less of the throat slit.
Why?
Because they said it was too graphic. And I was so proud of this throat slit.
That shit's fucked up. You
I
gotta
was
tell me why
like,
you
that is what it looks like.
Oh, yeah.
When, somebody is suddenly surprised by a knife going across their throat.
Yeah, it's just
And
quick.
their whole body opening. They let me keep a lot of it, but not all of it. But the thing I really wanted to keep was in that game where Bob is sitting down with Rabbit and they're going over the driver's licenses. And he's making him recite, their addresses and their weight. The environment on set was believe it or not, quite joyful. And I think as in order to balance the subject matter. And I said to Vincent, fuck with him a little bit. Give him a name he doesn't recognize.
Yeah.
And he says, Judy Couchsmith. And Rabbit says, he says, I don't know. And you can see him really frightened that he doesn't remember. And he says, Judy Couchsmith.
Yeah.
And Rabbit says, I don't know. And he's terrified to admit he doesn't know. And then Bob says, that's because I fucking made her up.
Yeah.
And it was this dark, horrifying moment where you see Bob enjoying the process and being that's as close as he's ever going to get to tossing a ball back and forth in the backyard with a kid. You know what I mean?
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It really it shows him that he's got a little charisma. Somebody's in there.
A little charisma, and I thought it was such an important part of that scene, and they didn't like it. And I said I think it makes him scarier and more human, and the more human the person keeping you and punishing you, the less you know how to deal with them.
Oh, I think that's terrifying because he's trying to build a bond with someone over something like that. Terrifying.
Exactly, and Rabbit is so concerned with being right and doing what Bob says and fulfilling. Thank you so much. Fulfilling, these expectations.
Yeah, it definitely is like a great
I'll never
study
forget
in
Judy
Stockholm
Kalksmith.
syndrome.
I thought it was a great name that he made up, and Eamon played it beautifully, not knowing. I said he may bring up a name you don't know, and just roll with it.
Oh,
And we had a lot of fun, and one of the more potent moments when Bob has his nightmare, remembering being forced to be intimate with his mother.
Yeah, that's those parts are crazy. When you had to film those, how was the how did y'all have to work through that one?
That was crazy, and that's you're working with actors who are essentially children.
Yeah.
And putting them in a situation that is very adult, and not just adult, but bad adult.
Yeah.
It
can be confusing, so to speak.
And so, it's sort of like I wanted them to stay as pure as they could so that they would respond the way a child would. But I also wanted to inform them of what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And so it was I tried to empower them and say, it's going to be this, this, and this, and whatever that makes you feel, knowing that this is your mother and this is your father, and your father is yelling at you. And your mother is crying. You just show me what that looks like for you.
They pulled it off.
They pulled it off. They pulled it off. And those two boys were actually brothers in real life. Both actors and really talented boys and very compassionate. And I was incredibly impressed with how kind they were to the actress who played the mom.
And
because it was a rough scene.
Do you, when you cast and you work in that, for those sort of roles, and particularly, all of these are pretty difficult. How are you able to put it into context and to kind of prepare these people ahead of time of like, hey, are you really sure you want to go through with this? Was there a lot of doubling down on it to really make sure that they had the stomach for the material and the understanding of what was going on? Or, because, you said you liked some of the purity there. So where was the balance?
There's, and this I can say I absolutely, in part learned from my father.
All right.
I feel there's the responsibility as an adult and as a director. I don't think anybody should actually suffer in order to show suffering. I think that we have the best job in the world, and we play dress up and we tell stories. And we pretend to be others and communicate with each other that way, and it's amazing. But it was my responsibility to protect the child. Like in Surveillance, I made sure that the kid never saw what we thought she was seeing.
Yeah, so it was kind of on and off set, and they do with children like that.
I had her react to something that we saw but she didn't.
Yeah.
And I could go ahead and talk her through an expression and a manifestation of things that was okay and would protect her and respect her. And the same thing with the boys. But what was most important to me about casting, and this is what my father taught me, is it's really so much about communication. That what you need to know most is, can I talk to this person? Do I hear them? Do they hear me? And that was what I needed to know from those two boys and from their parents. You know, it's dark subject matter, but I've got you. And I told Vincent too. He was, you know, he had a few moments where he was like, I'm going to a pretty bad place in a minute. And I said, I will push you and push you and push you, but I will always catch you.
You should have been like, come on, man, you've been in the bathroom with Kubrick before. You're fine. You're
exactly.
Going nowhere today.
No, he had some great Full Metal Jacket stories.
I bet he did. That was like how he cut his teeth, right? Because like Matthew Modine was like,
oh my God, no, I mean,
like
there's nothing like sitting next to Vincent on the gate of a camera truck and having him tell you Full Metal Jacket stories.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, directors are so different. You know, Stanley would make them do it 1,000 times. And when they would beg him to say what he wanted, he would say, I don't know. I'll know it when I see it.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's Stanley Kubrick, so he can get away with that. But I would never torment someone that way. I try to do my very best to empower the actor, give them a sense of what I'm looking for, but admit to them in a glorious way that I have no idea what that actually looks like, and they get to tell me what that looks like. And let's decide together, you know, what this moment is. But yeah, you know, it was a very playful set change, and so was Surveillance, very playful.
Yeah.
And it's very important to me that my daughter's voice is the voice of Stephanie when she whispers into Bill Pullman's ear, I know who you are. That's actually my daughter's voice. She recorded that for me.
Oh, really? So that's the loop. That's her voice there. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. And that's just a little thing I love to know.
That's a good Easter egg, though. I love audio Easter eggs like that. They're fun, yeah.
And it's not because I thought the actors couldn't do it, but because I wanted to hear that voice say it.
Yeah.
And she nailed it.
Were you excited about it when you did it? You bring everybody over to look at it, and you're like, look.
Totally fucking excited. I was in post, and we were in the apartment, and I had her stand by the desk and lean into the microphone, and here's your line.
Yeah.
And you're telling him because you're hoping it's going to save your life. You know, he's bringing all those other people into the room to hurt them. But you recognize his shoes.
And that was it.
Yeah, and I know switching topics a bit, but we did discuss TV a little bit earlier, and I wanted to ask, so when you stepped into television directing episodes, you know, for programs like American Horror Story, The Walking Dead, or Daredevil, did you find it freeing or confining to work within a pre-established universe?
Such a good question. And there are people have so many feelings about this. A lot of directors, TV directors, will tell you that what their goal is to make an episode of a particular show that showcases them, that has their name on it. And they don't like the idea that they can't just go willy-nilly into their own vibe, that they've got to fit in with the other episodes. And for me, maybe it's because I was raised without a lot of money, and we did things, you know, for $3. But restrictions kind of excite me, and I think of being a director for hire as if I'm a chef, and the showrunner comes into my restaurant and orders lasagna, and I might see that showrunner and say, "Man, I make a great fucking chicken.
Yeah.
I really would like to make you chicken." The showrunner says, "I want lasagna." So it's my job to make lasagna the best I can, and to please them and yet be specific enough that it reflects me enough that they call me back. They want to come back to my restaurant. That they like my cooking.
Well, I guess they like your lasagna some because you've done a lot of cooking.
I've done a lot. Yeah, I've done a lot of cooking. What's nice is how many times I get invited back, and I take that as a real compliment. That the showrunner and the writers feel heard and seen, and that they know that I am making an episode of their show. And that's my job. You know what I mean? When I'm creating a feature, or right now I'm staying up at night and writing a series I'd like to develop. Then I'm the kill switch. I'm ordering and cooking, hopefully both. But a lot of directors are really pissed off that the showrunner wants lasagna and they make a great stroganoff. For me, it's exciting to me. It's like, God, I would never think to make lasagna. Okay. How am I going to make a Jen Lynch lasagna?
Nice.
That fits in, because you don't want your episode to stand out in the wrong way. You want your episode to be memorable, but you want it to fit. One of the worst things that can happen to a show is that a guest director comes in and does something so specific to themselves that it doesn't work with the rest of the season. And once you start looking for that, you'll see it. And it's sad because it changes the tone of the characters, it changes the vibe of things, and it's very rarely is it complimentary to the show. It's often masturbatory and watch me direct and watch me do this and this is what I do.
What happens when you have to come in, say, behind that, or if you've come in front and behind it? How do you work around that?
I've come in both ways, and I just keep reminding them that I'm listening and that I know what my job is, and that what my job is excites me. I may never, ever, ever on my own have thought to shoot some of the things I've shot for shows, but there it is on my plate, and I've got to fall in love with it, and I've got to bring it to life, and I've got to make it fit. And I have to offer them something that makes them go, oh, I hadn't thought about it that way. I remember being on the set of The Elephant Man, and watching my dad block a scene. And of course it was perfect. It was amazing.
A lot of lighting in that.
And he's dealing with the actors, and he says, you're going to come in over here and you're going to do this and this and this, and the camera will be over here. And at the end of it, I thought, wow, that's fascinating. I would have done it from over here.
Yeah.
And it was just, there's no right or wrong. It's just in the same way that somebody telling a joke or making love, it's the same act, but you do it just differently enough that we're all curious, that it's all their version of the joke, their version of lovemaking. It's that version of this storytelling. How does your mother hold you when she tells you the story? Is your father rubbing your back when he tells you about, the monsters under your bed? I was the kid who I used to hang my hand out of my covers and into the space beneath my bed, because for me, I thought anything hiding underneath my bed, all I knew of hiding was that you were afraid. So I wanted to offer my friendship to anything that was scared and under my bed.
Oh, that's sweet.
And so for me, I love monsters. I have a real affinity for it. It's why I can fall in love with serial killers and broken people, because I feel like so often people are just misunderstood. And that's the fun slip up. No, some people are fucking awful. But if you're innocent enough to offer your hand to it, what is there to learn?
Yeah. I mean, it is true. Like, it's I get where you're at. It's as if saying that you can see where people have been left behind and what that's done to them.
Exactly. You know
Yeah.
why Bob in Chained is who he is. That horrible damage was done to that kid.
Yeah.
And the only way he felt empowered was to do awful things. And he genuinely thinks the way he's treating Rabbit and communicating with Rabbit is a good thing. He's doing his very best. And he feels deeply betrayed by Rabbit in the end.
Yeah.
But Bob is a monster.
It is. It's very much. It's got a narrative thing to like the Dean, like the Dean Carl kind of real life story. A
Yes.
little bit. It's so there is a lot of like this weird sort of Stockholm syndrome, and that's what I mean. Like the payoff in it, you really work this transition where this person kind of undergoes this sort of influence in their immediacy and their environment and the chaos of that. But then there's a little more. There's the deeper component, the depth of the integrity, where he's helping the girl out, and and then he's goes to face the monster at the end, the whole fulfilling of facing himself. And
I try very hard never to justify the behavior, but to explain it.
Yeah, no, that's been something you've had to deal with before. In a lot of
never
criticism.
okay what he does ever. But when you go back in time and see what was done to him, you understand why he does what he does.
Yeah.
It's not okay in any way, shape, or form. But you understand why the dog bites after having been kicked for so many years.
Yeah, and
Now, Ragan, you're going to ask a question about blocking.
yeah, I'm gonna. I didn't want to interrupt. I find this very interesting, but my question about blocking Poxy, since you have to spoil everything.
I'm sorry.
He just
Way
wants
to go.
Just gotta ruin everything. But I know we did talk a bit about blocking earlier. When you're on set, do you storyboard with camera blocking and lenses detailed, or do you typically improvise with your cast and crew?
I love to admit that I have done my research. I am prepared so that I can be spontaneous. No decision is ever correctly made, in my opinion, until the actors have said the words and we've all been in a room together. And they've been able to say, why would I do this? Or why am I over here? Or can I go over here? It's my job to be ready. I'm early every day, and I get some of my best thinking done early in the morning on the set alone. I let the actors know that first we'll say the words before we put it on its feet, as I like to say. And I have us all stand around together and we say the words. And then I say, in my mind, the shape of it is this. And I'm happy to answer any questions about why. Sometimes that's wonderful to an actor that I have a plan, and other times it can be very threatening to them. That they feel like they can't decide. I'm coming in the back door, and I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this. And actors are very delicate. They're the strongest, most fragile people you'll ever meet. They are naked to the core, and they have to say the same thing over and over again as if it's the first time every time. And that is a tough job.
Yeah, actors can deal with boredom like nobody's business.
Like nobody's business. And their job really is bursts of bravery and then lots of waiting. And it's those who stay playful who I think really get to excel at the job and enjoy themselves no matter what's going on. But blocking for me is, I often will say to people, something you're doing in this rehearsal, I want you to remember when we start shooting. Over this line, you have slumped your shoulders and you make this shape that tells me how you're feeling. And that's one of the gifts of a visual medium to me, is that I can tell how you're feeling before the character admits how they're feeling. And that lets the audience feel like they're in on something before the revelation happens to the character. And so the shape they make with their bodies, the reason they come in this door instead of that door, why would you step forward or step backward? What looks staged and what looks natural? And like there are so many toys to use. There are cranes and arms and lenses and swivel heads and so much stuff. But very often for me, I see things like those tools used, and I don't understand why they're used in a scene. A crane shot is beautiful, but I don't want to see a crane shot when the two heroes of the movie are having their final kiss. I don't want to drift off up into the air away from them. I want to be with them in that kiss.
Hey, you trying to watch them kiss?
Yeah, the crane shot is just masturbatory. It's like, look at the two toys I had. It's I was working on a TV show once, and with a DP I hadn't worked with before, and I was told I had an hour and a half to shoot something very, very dramatic. It felt near impossible to accomplish. It was a death scene, and there were 8 actors in the room, and very important to the story. And I said, this death is about stillness. The camera does not move. And the most movement is the dying woman's gasps, like a fish on a dock trying to collect air and cling to life and then let go. But only the people move, and they move very slowly. And I said, I'm going to go to the restroom. And I came back, and they had built an entire moving, all around the room, floating shot with a giant arm and a swivel head. And I said, what is this? And they said, well, we just want to audition this for you.
Oh, they done fucked up
And
everything.
I said, I will look at it, but we have an hour and a half, and it would mean a lot to me if you heard me say this entire scene is about stillness, that the most movement is her gasping for breath. It's really important that that be what moves in the scene. Otherwise, everything else is still. And they showed me the shot, and I said, yeah, that's very sexy. It looks like you have toys. It means nothing
Yeah.
to me dramatically. And so I stayed on the arm, but the arm did not fucking move.
You got the shot you wanted in the end of it?
I got the shot I wanted in the end, but it I ended up with a half an hour less time.
Well,
And-
that fuck up a
and-
whole day right there. For real.
People who, instead of wanting to play with someone, really just wanted to do what they wanted to do, and weren't getting excited about, so here's what we're doing. We're showing it this way. I don't ever need to be right. I want to make a good show. I want to make a good scene. I have learned more from being wrong and from other people stepping into skin I wrote or skin that I've been given on a page than I will learn from anything else. I am not afraid to be wrong. If I go home at night and we all created something we're proud of and did things we didn't know we could do, then I've been successful. And you will encounter in this business a lot of people who want something to look fancy and show off and be masturbatory about it. Watch me direct. Watch me direct.
Yeah, and they balloon a budget that way a lot too, excessively. I
Oh,
mean,
for sure. And I know it's such a hemorrhaging of money for no fucking reason.
yeah, the rental house fucking loves it. They do, but you know,
And
when you
like, oh
got
my
to set up
God, you could have
tracks.
just paid everybody. You could have given them beautiful lunches.
Yeah,
You could have had 2 more days of shooting if you didn't do that stupid crane shot that means nothing.
oh yeah, man. You know, you get them some fucking gimbals, and you got to calibrate everything, and somebody's pulling
it's
remote
ridiculous.
focus, and you lose signal, and you're like, I'm gonna blow my brains out.
And it's like, if that's the way you feel you need to show off, where's the scene?
Yeah, I don't
I
know.
want to be so lost in a show or a movie that I forget someone's directing. I think the director should disappear. That's my job, is to vanish until the credits roll. And then you go, whoa, that just poured over me. And I didn't even know it was happening to me. I just experienced it. I was just treated like I have a fucking brain and I don't need to show off. You know, I am often thanked a tremendous amount by production for not wanting a 50-foot techno crane.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
Very rarely do you need a 50-foot techno crane.
As a writer and an author, do you think visually while you're writing? You know, imagining lens perspectives or shot movements in cinematic frames?
Yes, I think what I and not necessarily specific to lenses, but specific to the distance I want to be from someone. How small in the frame someone is. Someone feeling lost and lonely shrinks in the frame. They become smaller, or they are small in comparison to other things. I try and write in, if I think it's important, I try and write in what the camera is doing, so that there is a visual language to things, so that people know, and then we cut to black. And then slowly but surely light leaks in, and we find ourselves in a baby's bassinet on a small hand, and give and tell them what they're seeing, so they are able to have the joy of you know. Otherwise, you know, I've always wanted to create a theater called Storytime Theater. I thought, wouldn't it be beautiful if you could go on a first date with somebody, or just a matinee with yourself or friends, where you go into a theater and it's pitch dark, and it's, you know, recycled airplane seats that recline all the way back, and it's temperature controlled, and you can put your purse in a locker outside, and there's espresso, and you go in there and somebody tells you a fucking story. Because when someone tells you a story and they say the little boy in the yellow raincoat with the red rain boots, everybody sees their own version of that little boy in the yellow coat with the red rain boots. And that's what's magical about the non-visual medium, the words that allow the person to paint. That's what can deeply personalize a story or an experience. And wouldn't it be nice to go out and talk afterwards? Halloween, you could do scary stories. You could have live readings. You could have, you know, chapters of books read. You could have short fiction. But you could go in there and experience what it is to be told something and given the camera yourself.
Yeah, because, you know, it's interesting, too, the way you describe that. Don't you feel like a lot of, say if you hand just anybody a cinema camera, kind of show them the basics, you know, pull the focus a little bit, you know, adjust lighting, whatever. Now, outside of breaking line, most people, you kind of feel, get an intuitive understanding for the way they want to visualize things through that. You
Yes.
think? Yeah. I mean, I feel like that understanding.
I think it, given the permission to do what they want to do, they find themselves being quite successful at it, which is one of the weird things about reality television. You know, there's this cameraman or are multiple cameramen in a house or a workplace watching these people behave the way they do, and what's the best way to see that? And it is their job is to observe and share, and if you give them permission to do that, you'll find that you're seeing exactly what you need to see, and that's what makes something with very little depth interesting.
Now, after got one more question for you. I'll let you go chill, take your day.
No, I'm not in any hurry. So
well, we can
if
talk
you
for
have
the rest of
questions,
time
ask.
if you want. I am very loquacious. I'm sorry. No,
Oh, I love that word, loquacious.
it's a fun one, isn't it? No, it's the way
Good
I
one.
try to
50
describe
cent
myself.
word. Ding, ding, ding.
Or I think it inhibits insecurity of going. I talk too much sometimes. I'm sorry. But-
Loquacious sounds
I love
cooler
that.
than
Oh,
that.
you know what? I don't know that there is such a thing, and to stop someone from talking too much, you kiss them.
Oh, all right. That's why my wife is always kissing me. I get it now. She don't like me. She just want me to shut. Oh man, I'm learning.
You know,
things.
it's like the urge to communicate, as long as it's not yelling and telling somebody what's wrong with them or what to do
Yeah.
different than they're doing. And it's communication and it's sharing. I think the way to stop them for a moment and to pause is to tell them you cherish it and to kiss them.
I'm gonna heed your advice there. I like that. That's good advice. Everyone out there should heed that advice.
Heed that advice. Kiss, damn it.
All right. Now, after everything though, with all everything you've been through as a filmmaker,
Yes.
what do you want? And I mean, you're still on road here, so I'm not trying to put you in a casket. I apologize, but
I'm not dead yet. I'm divorced, but not dead.
That's,
I may never ever kiss again,
no,
but I'm not dead.
you just gotta kiss him hard, Jen. Just kiss him hard.
You don't need any money. Good for you.
Now, what do you? So with your body of work so far, what do you want it to mean to people who discover it on their own terms? Say somebody just picks up. And I think Boxing Helena could be specific. This could work for all your movies as well. But everybody sees Psycho, right, as an example, and they kind of know what they're getting into. But if they didn't, think of what the story really was. Most people see it for the first time in today's world. They know Norman Bates and the whole story, how it plays out. But if you didn't, no, I'm not comparing Boxing Helena to Psycho, but I'm saying that Boxing Helena was in its static environment, and you were able to just enjoy that for the work that it was. And people are discovering it on their own terms. What would you want that to mean to them? And not even just Boxing Helena, all of your work, but that was kind of where I'm narrowed it specifically to make an example.
Very interesting question. And let me try and answer that as best I can.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to make it so big. I apologize.
Yeah, fuck you.
All right, that was an accident.
We talked about chain and surveillance and their sort of revelatory or twist endings.
Yeah.
Boxing Helena was meant to do the same thing, and yet I think was seen as a college student who didn't know how to finish their story, so they said it was a dream. For me, the most powerful Nick ever is not when he's removing parts of her body, but when he gives her her life back, when he actually saves her life and wakes up next to her and she's whole. And so what I hope people see is that I think people are really smart. And I think if somebody walks in the room with hunched over shoulders and can't make eye contact, they're not having the best day. And that's instinct. I think people should know that I understand walking into a room, and even though it's silent, someone's just been fighting. That there is a respect for the audience and a respect for human nature that I try and appeal to in the storytelling. the Enchained, when Julie Ormond is telling her son to stay in the car, and she's being dragged away. Mommy's okay. Stay in the car, honey. Mommy's okay. The most important thing to me about that is that she is going to die on the hill of be the best mom you can be.
You know?
You know what I mean? And that's what tells me about a character, and that's what tells me about the echo they leave, and what I've just lost. I've lost a woman who doesn't know that her husband has betrayed her, but believes she's been kidnapped and threatened, and that terrible things are happening to her, and that she has an opportunity to protect her child and sacrifice herself. Maybe he'll just rape me. Maybe that's all he wants. And she can tell this part of herself that she so adores and doesn't even know how. You love something so deeply, it's insane when you have a kid. The best thing she can do is try and keep him safe. If it's the last thing she does, she's going to keep him safe.
So in a way, I'm not trying to climb your mind or anything, but a lot of what your expressions and your feelings, I guess, in some ways as a parent, can come through in some of your filmmaking.
Absolutely.
Okay, I don't want to reach. Sorry, but I was.
Yes.
But that
you were
was
going to say something else.
Well, that was my interpretation of some of it. Because when I grew up, my mom was a single mom, worked a lot, and was around a lot of rowdy guys. And that the beginning of that movie hit me that way, and kind of like, shit, we could have wound up in that situation a million times. And what would you have been like? Just when it takes that kind of really hard turn in life,
Right. Well, and sometimes, it isn't that this taxi cab driver has kidnapped you. It's just that somebody's had too much to drink.
Yeah.
And that can be your uncle.
Yeah.
That can be your neighbor. What's scary about it is that there is a shift, and you are alone in having to respond to it. And I think the beauty of being a parent is that, I wouldn't let anything scream at me and puke on me and shit on me the way my daughter did.
Yeah.
That's a damn good point.
Because nature made me love her.
Yeah.
And I will accept whatever shape she takes and whoever she is. It's why I don't understand people not accepting their gay or trans children. What a heartbreak.
Yeah.
But I think the gift is not only do you love them, because nature makes that so, but you like them. Like I love my daughter deeply and infinitely. I also really like who she is as a person. And that feels like a gift. That feels like something that she's done on her own, and I've gotten to witness emerging.
Oh, that's sweet, Jen. That's incredibly sweet. All right, I'm Poxy Leonard here with Miss Ragan, and it's time for us to say so long. Jennifer Lynch, thank you for joining us tonight on this show.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your kindness to me. I really appreciate it.
You are listening to The Ghost of Hollywood. We will be right back after these messages.
Interested in television or movies?
Then check out The Ghost of Hollywood for the best in cinema-related podcast at theghostofhollywood.com or wherever you get your podcast.
Welcome back to The Ghost of Hollywood. I'm Miss Ragan here with Poxy Leonard, and we've just finished a lovely conversation with writer and director Jennifer Lynch.
Jen, thank you again for making the time to join us on the show tonight, and thanks to your staff for setting everything up to make this possible.
We'd also like to thank our crew here at The Ghost of Hollywood and our sponsors at KBOO Radio and Microphonic Meltdown for their support of the program as we continue to make our way through the 5th season. And with the recent announcement of the closure of the CPB, KBOO appreciates all the support listeners are able to provide to continue to bring the Portland, Oregon area the best in non-commercial radio.
And that's all we wrote, everybody. Like, literally, I think that's all we wrote. But
that's all you can get through. Eighth take.
Hey, it's kind of true. I don't know what's happening in my brain today. It's It's like every day. It doesn't work. Anyway, don't forget that you can visit our website at theghostofhollywood.com for all the latest updates and episodes. You can also check out the archives on there for all the old episodes, too, when I was young and still just as dumb. It's also streaming wherever you get your podcasts. Yep, that's true, too. Yeah. All right, wall crawlers. We'll be back in a few weeks with a... I tried. All right, welcome. I'm melting here, everybody. Look, just stay with me. I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it.
Get through it. Take a breath.
Wall crawlers, bear with me. I promise I'll be back for the next episode in a few weeks. It's going to be brand new, so keep an ear out, because I'm Poxy Leonard here with Miss Ragan, and until next time...
Good morning and good night.
This episode of The Ghost of Hollywood was sponsored by KBOO Community Radio in Portland, Oregon, and Microphonic Meltdown in Portland, Oregon. The Ghost of Hollywood was created by Zach and Ragan Flannery. The show is mixed by Lynch Flannery at Electric Garden Studios in Portland, Oregon. The show is also mastered by Microphonic Meltdown and Grady Sizemore in Portland, Oregon. For more information on The Ghost of Hollywood, please visit theghostofhollywood.com.